Raising the Bets is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets, a family podcast of pirates and penguins. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far as we make sense of the world and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Don Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Spring has sprung. It has been a beautiful Sunday here today in the outskirts of Boston, shall we say. And it wasn't quite as sunny as yesterday, but it was warmer, right? I was indoors for part of it. So.
It was less windy.
Oh my God. Well, no, Friday was windy. Friday was like...
Yesterday was pretty windy, too. I mean, it wasn't as windy as Friday, but it was windy.
It was pleasantly breezy.
It was windy.
Anyway, Friday was wicked windy. In fact, the girls were out biking and decided to come in because they were afraid it was too windy. We lost power for just a millisecond, which is... We had these weird microsecond power outages. I don't know what that's about. In any case, but today was pleasant. It was warmer, and the sun was out at times, which was nice. So let's give a broken things update as we've been talking about recently. Broken things around the house. We had a broken light switch in the bathroom. That was the one that controls the exhaust fan and the light on the exhaust fan.
I think it got exhausted.
It was exhausted itself. I went to Lowe's. I picked up a replacement switch. I kind of did my best finding the right kind. I think in fact, I got the right kind. That was confirmed, but I wired it wrong, and it went zap. I turned it on, and
oops.
Yeah, and so I called my friend Dan, who is he's the Cub Master, but he's also a mechanic, and he's really handy. And he called another scouting friend who's an electrician, thankfully. Let me tell you, it is good to have friends in scouting, just right off the bat, because it brings all kinds of people who are all very handy to have as friends. And we figured out that I wired it wrong, obviously, but also that the original electrical boxes are really narrow. And so the new light switch was touching the box and causing it to trip.
Okay.
And also, both of us missed the fact that when I originally had the zap, it tripped the GFCI, which is the ground fault circuit interrupter, which you have to have near water things.
Right.
And that's why we couldn't get it going. Like, I thought it burned out the wire in the wall, but that wasn't it. Anyway, so thank you to Dan for helping me in my hour of need, not having to call an electrician and spend $150 at minimum to replace a silly light switch that I should have been able to do myself. But I did spend money on getting a leaky bathroom faucet fixed because we had the plumber come in to fix that. That he actually didn't charge us as much because we'd had him in to fix something else, another leak under the sink, and had missed this. So he gave us a discount, which was very nice of him.
Yes.
If you are in the Boston area, south of Boston area, need a plumber for anything, including new construction, South Weymouth Plumbing. Let me just tell you right there, that's my endorsement. This is not a paid endorsement. I highly recommend them. Yeah. So, and then Ben's bike is still broken because I can't figure out how to get the darn thing apart to replace the spindle. So we're going to take it back to Target and make them give us a new one. That's my solution. That's what we're going to do. So that was the broken thing update, which I need now. I think I need a theme song, like a bumper for that.
Mm.
It would just make crashing sounds.
Broken things.
Let's not have a broken things update anymore.
I would prefer that not to be a regular weekly feature.
It would be a lot less expensive to have that not be a weekly feature. Okay, on to good things that happened this week. The farmers market is back.
Yay!
And early this year. Did you notice that?
Is it earlier than normal?
It's usually mid-May. This was the first day of May. It was unusual. And they also had a longer winter market this year. They had like 2 months of winter market, which we didn't get to, but that was unusual too. But I was very glad. So it looks like we're permanently at this new location. So originally, the market was in the parking lot at the beach in the town of Hingham, and which was awesome, right? I mean,
The beach is pretty cool.
it's hard to beat farmers market like next to the beach at the harbor. But they moved it last year to a nearby parking lot in a, they call it the station parking lot, but I don't think there's a station there anymore.
There used to be a station.
There used to be a station.
Old train station.
Right. So it's just a parking lot downtown, but it's...
They used to do that as sort of once or twice a year for like when they were using the beach
for something else. Right.
But now it's become
I think it's permanent, yeah. They built a like a sandwich shack, like more than a shack, like a facility at the beach. So I think that's one of the reasons why they can't use that space, the parking lot there. So
it's taking up a lot of room, and then the farmers market would like block it out.
Yeah, nothing says we can't drive down to the beach after the market, though. That's for sure.
Well, now that there's an ice cream place at the beach, I think that's added inducement.
That is definitely added inducement. So we went to the market, and it was really great. And it's I guess I've said many times, it's so nice to have friends and to be recognized and to say, hey, it's been so long. Great to see you after this long winter. It's wonderful to be back. I mean, it's really nice.
We got lots of there was more produce, I think, than there has been at previous first market.
Week. Yeah, definitely.
We got mushrooms.
The mushroom vendor was back. We got shiitake and was it oyster?
Blue oyster
Cult mushrooms.
We got kale and arugula and salad greens,
and turnips.
The sweet salad turnips.
Yes, not the big yucky ones. They had carrots, but we didn't get any carrots.
And radishes.
Oh, radishes! Always an early season favorite. And then that was actually one farm, 80 Union. Then the Oakdale, they didn't have much. They had salad greens. That's what we got from them. Salad greens.
I was just listening. I wasn't going through vendor by vendor.
No, that's fine. And then we got some plants from them too.
Yeah, I got a little basil under like in the Thai basil, the purple one.
Maybe we should get some cucumber plants.
And no, rosemary.
Rosemary, yes.
Yeah, some
not oregano.
Cucumber plants would be probably good.
Yes, cucumber plants. Because, man, those cucumbers that we grew last year were awesome, especially when we made them into pickles. Yum. And then there's a new baker. There was a new bakery there.
Their bread was really, really good.
Yes.
They were very nice. We got a baguette and
it was flat.
A country loaf.
Yeah.
And they had two baguettes that were kind of stuck together, and so they just gave us
both.
two for one.
Yeah.
Which was awesome because like the kids ate like both baguettes before dinner.
So the people who was helping us, those are the parents of the guy who runs the bakery. He's a young guy. I saw him on social media that they were talking about him. So they were his parents. It was really
I wasn't
cute.
really paying that much attention.
Our favorite bakery, Pain d'Avignon, was not there, but hopefully they'll be back. There's a lot of vendors who aren't there yet that weren't there last year either. As things starting to loosen up, things are starting to get better. I'm very hopeful that a lot of them are coming back. Big one, Summer's Bounty, the jam.
The jam ladies.
Oh my gosh, they make the best. Ben was so excited to get more of their strawberry jam.
They really there's like something magic about their jam.
They put an addictive substance in it that makes you crave it fortnightly.
Because
I've never
sometimes I think we pay an awful lot for jam. Like there's definitely like
there's a premium you're paying.
There's a premium that you're paying, but like compared to supermarket jam, like even the really nice stuff like Bon Maman, there's just like it's not even a comparison.
It tastes like strawberry. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like there's strawberry that's a strawberry flavored things, and then there's strawberries. Really good strawberries, like fresh, fresh strawberries in season. That's what I meant to say. And their jam tastes like in season, freshly picked strawberries. It's remarkable. And the same thing with their other flavors. It's amazing.
And their raspberry jam is the only raspberry jam I've ever had that I really liked that didn't have it's got all the seeds in it. They do not strain the seeds out, but it doesn't have that seedy texture.
Yeah.
It's like they somehow managed to cook them until they're soft. It's magic.
It is
it's magic.
They are magic ladies, and they're really nice. Elizabeth from Coppicut Farms wasn't there, but she had one of her farm workers was there. We got some eggs and breakfast sausage, which we didn't have yet, which I would like to have. That was really that looked really good.
I think we should have like a pancakes for dinner one
Pancakes
night
and sausage for dinner. That's a great idea. Because we haven't had pancakes for a while. And then that was about it. Like, we're still missing the cheese, Narragansett creamy cheese. We're still missing the lady who brings the seafood chowder. There's still people that we would normally see that aren't there yet, and so hopefully that things get better and we'll start seeing them. Awesome, the farmers market's the best. And then today we had the Cub Scouts Pinewood Derby. That's always a little bit of an ordeal for me. Let me just say it right there, because I'm a den leader, so I have to oversee the making of cars for my den. I have to oversee the making of cars for my children, Anthony and Lucy. And then I'm also in charge of running the track. It's different from when I was a kid. These tracks are now electronic, and so I'm the computer guy in the leadership of the troop, of the pack, and so it falls to me to make it work. And a lot of the software that runs the tracks, let me just be honest, and I feel bad saying a little bit, but it's by and large not very good. It's kind of janky, and it's all made. It's basically all Windows software and kind of janky port to Mac. And so the one we used to use was I had so much trouble with. Dan had picked up this new track from a pack that had gone out of, had folded, and it had a different system. It worked much better. Let me just say that it was better.
Except that this track didn't play well with the cars that had the weights on the bottom.
Physically, yeah. The electronic stuff, the computer stuff worked much better. Yeah, the cars run on a track, and there's like a central ridge that they straddle, and this central ridge was taller than the old track, so any cars that had weights attached to the bottom kind of had some friction, and some of the cars didn't ever make it to the end, to the gate at the end, the finish line. So like Lucy's, hers didn't quite get there all the time. But Anthony did pretty good though. He came in 5th overall, which is pretty good. There's a couple of kids. There's one kid who's like Lucy's age. He's like 8, who wins it. He came in first 2 years in a row and came in 2nd this year. I don't know what his dad is doing. I'm just saying.
Magic.
Magic is what yes. I think there's some secret industrial grade lubricant going on or something. Some that the Clark W. Griswold food safe coating. You remember how we did the sled in Christmas Vacation?
No.
Okay, never mind.
I don't know these movies.
That's right. I forget.
I've seen it once.
You're younger than I am and not as versed. Anyway, Pinewood Derby was good. Of course, there's not silly restrictions, but the restrictions. There could be one parent per scout. So a lot of parents couldn't come, and it was it was sad. It wasn't as good. I mean, Bella was saying that how much she misses going, even though she doesn't race. She just loves seeing the kids race and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. But next year was one. Next year, I'll just have Lucy. I won't have a den. I won't have to do Anthony's, because Lucy will be our last Cub Scout, and all of my Weebelows will be moving over to Boy Scouts come next winter, next February or so, and so I won't have to worry about that at all. Which is yay. Although I'm sure Dan will. You
will still get roped into doing the computer stuff.
But you know what?
Until we are no longer associated with Scouts at all. Like even when we no longer have Cubs, you'll still be doing the Pinewood Derby.
Dan hasn't had a Cub Scout. Let's put it. Dan hasn't had a Cub Scout in like 10 years, and he's still Cub Master. Yeah.
Right.
Once you're in, they keep pulling me back in, to quote Tony Montana. Just when I think I've gotten out. So Pinewood Derby, it was fun. Not my favorite thing we do in scouting, but it was okay. So let's talk about food, because one of the things we got at the market, I didn't mention, but Tom, our seafood guide, was there, and we got, was it Anthony who said, can we get mussels?
Maybe.
I think it might have been Anthony who first mentioned it. So yeah, we got mussels, and we made our favorite mussels and marinara. And wasn't as popular this time.
The mussels weren't as good.
They weren't.
I gotta say, the early season mussels, they
were big.
They were big, and I thought, ooh, big mussels. And it turns out that the big ones are...
They weren't meaty, they were mushy.
The texture was not good.
Yeah, I think they might have been like, I don't know. I should look it up, actually, what the deal is with early season mussels, and do they get just like watered down or something like that. It was kind of, I didn't mind it. I kind of liked it. And I think the sauce, the marinara part of it was really good. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do with the leftover is I'm going to thicken it up with like maybe a cornstarch slurry or something, in maybe some butter, and make a thicker sauce for pasta with it for lunch or something. Would be my idea with that. And we ate it with the...
Why wouldn't you just do cream instead of cornstarch?
Would cream be weird with it? I don't know. That's, I mean, you could give it a shot. Like, yeah, like a tomato cream sauce.
Yeah. Like tomato vodka sauce. That's tomato cream.
But seafood specifically. And I might have to add a little, well, it's got wine in it, so that's not a problem.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I might try that. We'll see how it goes. Now I have to try the cream instead of the cornstarch. I think cream will add a little more flavor and richness than cornstarch would. Cornstarch would just thicken it.
Right, but with no flavor.
It doesn't add flavor. No, it doesn't. But it is pretty flavorful on its own. We also had with it, of course, if you're going to eat mussels in a marinara sauce, you need to have a nice crusty bread. The kids had already eaten the baguette and lots of with strawberry jam on it. But so we had gotten this country levain bread, which I hadn't heard of levain before, but you had.
Yeah, when I was doing sourdough, making my own sourdough starters, I found some articles that talked about. Well, there's a whole category of, basically, you could call them all sourdoughs, breads made with a starter.
Right. Preferments is what bakers call them, I think.
Which is, you can call it preferment, but it's also pre-ferment. Like a
pre-ferment. Oh,
yeah, not preferment.
Yeah,
pre-ferment.
Now I see what that says.
Yeah,
a hyphen in there would help.
Yes. So yeah, in Italy it's called like a biga. In French, it's levain. They differ in terms of like the ratios of flour to water and how long they sit and stuff. But basically, having some of your flour with water and yeast sitting for some time before you actually put it into your bread and make a loaf, it changes the flavor. It also changes the way that the
way it rises
and everything.
Yeah, there's so this article I was looking at makes a distinction between a levain and sourdough starter. Levain is an offshoot of the sourdough starter that you use to adjust the flavor, I guess, or something like that. Although they do all say that sometimes it's just the French word. Someone's using the French word for sourdough, which is what it is. Which it could have been. It could have been just a regular sourdough that we had.
Except the bakery was very French. It was a French bakery.
No, I know it was a French bakery, but like it was basically was it basically a sourdough? It wasn't as sour as a lot of sourdoughs.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is like a baguette is a like it's made with a pre-ferment.
Yeah.
But it's usually not as sour as an American sourdough. Like American sourdough uses a very sour, an especially sour sort of strain.
Okay. So a sourdough starter is an ongoing culture refreshed regularly. A levain is used once for a single bake. Sourdough starter is usually refreshed with the same flour, but levain can be any flour combination. And sourdough starter, because it's maintained consistently, should have consistent flavor characteristics, whereas a levain can be used to change the flavor and texture of a single batch of dough. I'm reading that off of a website.
Except that makes it sound like it's really clear cut, and in fact, there are in fact levains like starters, because the French just call everything levain. So
they don't say sourdough.
Right, and so there are some which have been in existence for a long, years and years and years, just like a sourdough. So that's making sort of a distinction without
a difference.
Yeah, I don't know.
In any case, it was very good.
It was super good bread.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't any left over when we were done. We often have like a little.
There was a little bit left over this morning.
Oh.
I made omelets and toast.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes there's a hunk that gets left. The end of it that gets left over and ends up going hard in the bread basket. But this did not. This got eaten.
I probably shouldn't have eaten it. I didn't really need it, but it was really good.
Yeah, it's a treat. And I'm really excited to have 2 good bakeries at the farmers market.
Well, I suspect that they're going to the Pan d'Avignon's not coming back, and this is going to be the new bakery.
Oh, don't make me sad that Pan d'Avignon won't be back. The only thing that makes me not as sad is that Pan d'Avignon's breads are now available at our local supermarket, which is good.
Well, they're not the croissants and the fancy breads.
No. We're going to have to take a trip down to Hyannis, where they are located someday, and check out their cafe and bakery.
That's going to be an expensive trip.
Yes. We know somebody who has a timeshare in Hyannis, so maybe we could get an overnight or something. Anyway, moving on. We'll talk about that separately. Let's talk about what we've been reading and watching. This looks like a busy category for us this week.
Yes.
Can I talk about my 2 books that I've read?
I suppose.
Actually, I'll talk about my 1 book I read because you've got 3. So I'll talk my 1. I finished reading the Star Wars The High Republic book called Into the Dark. Now, as a reminder, The High Republic is a new series of books from Disney Lucas that takes place several hundred years before the events of the prequels. And it is, as the name suggests, when the Republic was at its height, when the Galactic Republic and the Jedi Order was at its peak strength and purpose. It had not become decayed and decadent and what all the stuff we saw in the prequels. And it's an interesting look at a different kind of Star Wars world and the different kind of Jedi Order. And it's fun to see the Jedi as they're supposed to be, as that they were hinted at, what they were supposed to be in the movies. And so that's kind of fun. This particular book, written by Claudia Gray, I didn't like it as much as the other one I'd read. It's okay. It feels like it's written as a young adult novel, but I don't think it actually is. And a couple things that I didn't like. One thing is there's a theme of like 2 different young women being abducted or hunted or taken for the purposes of ravaging them. Like there's a really clear implication. And then there's another part where this one young woman who's a character, it's talked about how as she's serving on she's like works on different freighters and goes from freighter to freighter, and how she's constantly pursued. And I'm like, that like this doesn't really. There's a Lebowski character, and there's this conversation between them about how he's celibate because he doesn't care about any of that stuff, so she's safe with him. And it just felt like weird. It just like felt out of place in the story. I don't know. It was, yeah, I kind of felt icky. The plot, there were some obvious plot turns, and what I mean by that is places where the character is making conclusions or assumptions that are completely unwarranted, and as a reader, you're going, well, no, duh, that's obviously not what's going to happen. Like, this isn't just me predicting like I do. This is like, obviously, this is not what's going on, and the character is being obtuse or something like that. It's kind of annoying a little bit. The last thing I would mention is there's a thing about in Star Wars with the Padawan have like a little braid. Remember that? Like Obi-Wan Kenobi in the first prequel had the little rat tail braid. It's an apprentice thing.
Anakin had one too.
Anakin had one in the other 2 movies. And this is like part of it. This is minor, but there's a scene where this Padawan is carrying a baby Wookiee, and the Wookiee grabs the tail and rips it out, and it hurts. Wow, that's terrible. And I'm like, no, you don't get your hair braid pulled out by the roots and just go, ouch. Like, that's a major wound. Like, it just was kind of annoying. Anyway, that's a minor quibble on my part. Now, the story itself is original and interesting, and the context of it, what actually happens there. There's interesting characters, interesting aliens. So I like that part of it, and I like the Jedi that are in it. That those are pretty good. So all in all, I'd give it a I give it like 3 out of 4 stars, 3 out of 4 thumbs up, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Your books.
All right. So I finished the book that I mentioned last week, Bamboo People, which was about the child soldier in Burma. The book does not call it Myanmar, even though
it's present day.
Present day, yes.
Interesting.
She points out that Myanmar is, well, the official name that the government gives it. In everyday usage, a lot of people who live there don't call it Myanmar. Like in everyday conversation, they'll say Burma. So she kind of felt like it was in keeping with the characters. She doesn't specifically say that it's a political choice on her part, but I kind of wondered if maybe that was part of it too, because there is definitely a critique of the government. Okay, so it ended on a strong note. I really liked the characters, and I loved the fact that when our protagonist soldier is in the refugee camp, he's wounded in the leg. He loses his leg, and he's recuperating. And eventually, the doctor at the refugee camp fits him with a prosthetic. He picks up Lord of the Rings and reads the entirety of Lord of the Rings,
not knowing anything about it ahead of time.
No, like he's like his father's taught him English, and they have a handful of books in English which are sort of treasured, and they hide in their house. And so he's presented at the beginning of the novel reading, and then through all the time when he's a soldier, he doesn't of course have any books or anything to read, although he makes his way by being the only literate guy in the platoon, that he is the training platoon. So he's able to read the official correspondence, which it turns out that the officers who are training them can't read. So he has reading is power. There's a great reading is power message, but I think the primary theme of the novel is forgiveness, and I really liked that theme. And I love the fact that he connects with Frodo as this sort of wounded hero who doesn't come unscathed through his adventure.
Right, like him.
Like the protagonist. So it was really nice. I liked that. It was a nice touch to have Lord of the Rings be. It wasn't a huge part of the plot, but it was this nice moment.
Cool.
Then I also read the new Thrawn book, which came out this week.
Yes, you've read it. Sophie's read it. Bella's read it. And Anthony's reading it. Oh, and Ben's read it. So the only people who haven't read it yet are me and Lucy, who hasn't read any of the
And
Thrawn
Anthony
books.
hasn't finished it because
He
he's
hasn't
reading
finished
slowly.
it yet, but he's reading it. Yeah.
I thought this...
No spoilers.
No spoilers. This is the second novel in the Ascendancy trilogy. It's the third one is planned to come out in November. It felt like a second novel. It's not. This is not a spoilery, but it felt like a second novel. It felt like the middle chunk. Like I could see where it's setting up a lot of stuff.
No clear beginning, but no clear, loose tying up loose ends.
I mean, there was definitely a clear story arc. There was an antagonist and this plot. It felt like the novel spent very little time with Thrawn himself. Like he is almost a minor character in this novel, and most of the novel takes place with all the secondary characters. There's been a lot of time on one of the Chiss worlds with civilians and not even military, which you kind of, because Thrawn is so inept at politics, you kind of have to, if you want to get in what's going on politically, which I think is a very important component of the novel, you have to tell that through somebody else's point of view, because Thrawn isn't going to get it.
Right.
And in the first trilogy, when Thrawn is in the Empire, you kind of get Eli, the human, as the point of view character who understands politics, and you kind of, there's this nice back and forth between the two of them. And in this series, I feel like there's not a clear point of view character to balance out Thrawn. And so this one sort of took this long divergence through these other characters that I really had a hard time caring about.
Interesting. I wonder with this character, he's much more in Star Wars Rebels. He's much less inept about politics. He's he's much more savvy about politics. Is that just experience in growth, you think?
I think that there's definitely an implication that he grows through his experience in the Empire. And I think that's clear in the novels that he's his experience, especially his friendship with Eli as it develops, is very much Eli kind of teaches him about politics. He's still not good at it.
Right.
But he's not a complete, but he's more willing to try to understand it, and he's willing to like sort of take counsel from other people. Whereas in the prequels, he's just completely clueless.
Right. In the
Ascendancy books are the
prequels. Right. Yeah, right. I see what you're saying.
I mean, I think it's interesting because you do see that he has grown from this point. And I like this is all basically backstory, but there's a part of my brain that's saying, this is all the backstory. I want to know where it goes from, like,
After Rebels?
After Rebels.
Oh, I think we're going to get that.
Oh, I think we are. I think it's very clear. They dropped a big clue in The Mandalorian.
Yes.
Season 2 that we're going to see Thrawn.
Yes.
Somehow.
In fact, I have a feeling we're going to see Thrawn. I think Thrawn might be the next big baddie in Star Wars, which would be fantastic because he's probably one of the best villains in Star Wars.
This is my question, though, because in the Thrawn novels, he is a highly sympathetic character, and he is not a villain.
I know. That's what makes it so great. That's like, I think having a character who you like, you sympathize with, who you think, wow, like I'm rooting for him, and then you realize, but wait, no, he's the bad guy. He's an anti-hero, but not even just an anti-hero in that sense either. But there are cartoonish villains. The Emperor. I'm plotting all kinds of evil. I mean, there's that sort of thing. Very cartoonish. Excuse me, I just did my throat in. But the villain who thinks he's doing good is, I think, more interesting. Who's convinced that he's not the bad guy. I think that's a much more interesting kind of villain. So I would love to see Thrawn kind of come up in the Ahsoka series, and the Rangers of the Republic, and maybe something more.
But but will they ever get to a point where he's not the villain?
I don't know.
Because to me that would be really, really interesting too.
I agree. And I was just thinking, Rian Johnson is supposedly still developing this new trilogy, which, as they keep saying, takes place in a different part of the Star Wars universe we haven't covered before. Could it be
the
Chiss Ascendancy?
Right, or the chaos, the outer,
the wild regions, the unknown regions they call them, or whatever the various other names, right. The chaos. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Which I'm kind of I want more of this. I want more of this. Like,
right.
Yeah,
I really like that. I mean, I think that they stand alone as really good science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like they almost sort of are tangential to the Star Wars universe, but at the same time there are those connections,
right?
So moving on before
yes, let's move on to the next.
My third book was called What Elephants Know, and it's another juvenile novel. Isabella's been studying for geography. She's been studying Asia, and so I found a list of like fiction, and I'm not sure she's going to actually read all of these, but I'm kind of enjoying them. So What Elephants Know takes place in Nepal. And curiously, the author spent a lot of time in Nepal, starting when he was young and in the Peace Corps volunteers. So the protagonist is a boy who is found in the jungle, being looked after by wild dogs. Getting a little bit of a Jungle Book vibe here.
A little bit, Kipling.
Yeah. And then he is raised by this man who is the head keeper of the king's royal elephant stable. So the elephants are sort of the private preserve of the king of Nepal. And so this boy has been raised basically with the elephants. And in fact, he thinks of this one particular elephant as being his mother. She's the only maternal presence he's ever had because he's been raised with this sort of all male crew of elephant drivers. And so once a year, the king and the royal family and the court all come to go on a tiger hunt. And our protagonist disrupts the royal tiger hunt. And he does the right thing for the right reason, which is to save a female tiger who has cubs, which the king agrees. You did the right thing because it would have been wrong to kill her. But the king doesn't catch a tiger, and the money is tight, and so they're going to shut down their stable. So on one hand, it's kind of a quest novel. I want to save the stable, save the elephants. But then he's also sent to school, and so it becomes the school story where he doesn't fit in because he's a lower caste. He's from the mountains, and he doesn't look like the other kids, and so he's sort of an outcast. But he befriends this old Jesuit priest who is a naturalist. And so he and this Jesuit priest make this great friendship, and they're both avid naturalists, and he helps to teach him about the jungle, but he also learns, and he also, when he's at school, gets very lonely and bored, and he discovers the school library, and beautifully he discovers Kipling and falls in love with the Jungle Book. And then there's this whole plot about saving the elephants too. So it had these really great layers in it, and it really was very immersive into the culture of Nepal. I really liked it. I loved the Jesuit priest character. He was awesome.
Cool. Awesome.
Oh, and then there was also another third plot line about the bandits who are marauding and stealing and killing people. So it was a complex novel, which is a lot of times novels aimed at a younger audience tend to have, very simplistic, a single plot. And this one felt a lot more well-rounded.
Awesome.
Highly recommend that too.
Cool. All right. So I wanted to talk about a couple things I've watched that I've watched this week. One is new, and one is one I've talked about before that I've completed. But the new one is a show called Grace. It was on BritBox, and it's an adaptation of some crime novels. So BritBox is British television from ITV and BBC, but this was an original for BritBox, so they do some of their own original streaming shows. This is a detective novel featuring this character Grace, played by John Sim, who you don't recognize the name, but you would recognize him as the Master on Doctor Who during the David Tennant period, the really crazy one.
Yeah.
He's the only master. There's been two masters. There's Missy, the woman, and him.
Right.
And one episode that featured Derek Jacobi, that we didn't know was the Master until the very end of that episode. But technically, effectively, there's only been two masters, and he's the male one. Anyway,
there's in a recent series there was the.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the new one with the Jodie Whittaker Master. Yes. That's right. I'm sorry. Right, but this is the one from before that with David Tennant, who John Sim chewed the scenery like crazy.
He was great.
He was great. But in this, he plays a detective who his primary job is finding the missing persons.
Okay.
Whose own wife has gone missing. Just up and gone, and has never been able to find her. So
did he go into looking for missing persons because his wife had gone missing?
No, he had been a missing persons detective
before.
I think. I'm pretty sure that he was already. He's somewhat disgraced a little bit. I forget exactly why.
So is there a pun on his name? Grace, disgraced?
Perhaps. And he gets this reputation for having consulted a medium to help find missing persons. That actually the medium helped him find somebody and save their lives, but he's being mocked in the tabloids and stuff like that and so his bosses are all mad because he's doing this woo-woo stuff, which it's all very interesting to me to see this, having done a bunch of Mysterious World episodes on things like remote viewing, and Thomas Aquinas talking about the perhaps extrasensory perception sort of abilities could be a weak natural ability that God has given us. I mean, it's not a conclusive or anything like that, but it's very interesting that I don't dismiss it out of hand like I might once have, but put it that way. So he's an old colleague of his, younger guy who's now been promoted, asks him to consult on a case because this developer who on his stag party, what do we call it nowadays, like in America?
Bachelor party,
yes. I'm sorry, I got the British term stuck in my head. He was on his stag with his mates, and he went missing. There was a car accident. The van that they were driving in crashed. Several of them had died, and he's missing. Like he's not in the van. Like no one knows where he is, and there's several really pretty good twists and turns, such that you know how good I am at figuring out. I didn't catch it.
Wow.
I didn't predict it. I didn't see it. I saw some of the things. I'm like, that person is fishy, but even then, I only kind of saw that near where the revelation about that person being fishy came out. Anyway, so there was. It was pretty good. It was good, and so I think there's at least 2 episodes. There might be another episode coming out this week, as we talk. So,
like a different story or the same?
A different story.
Okay.
So so it's all like a lot of British TV. It's like it's like a mini series. It's like 3 episodes.
Right.
And the first one, and each episode is an adaptation of one of the novels that it's based on.
Right.
And so it's pretty long. It's like an hour and a half, maybe even, but it was really good.
It sounds kind of like what Shetland was doing. They started off with
just a handful of
with a few like 1 or 2 part stories based on novels, and then later on they kind of expanded it into more of a like longer seasons.
Right. I gotta tell you, John Sim is really good. I hadn't seen him in anything else besides Doctor Who, although he was in that series called Life on Mars, which an American series was based on that, and it was supposed to be really good. And I might go try to find that because it was supposed to be really good. But in this case, like, he was really good. I really enjoyed this. So it's worth watching if you can get BritBox. Yeah, I recommend that. I finished the Netflix documentary series called This Is A Robbery about the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum.
Mm-hmm.
So,
did you learn something new?
Well, yes and no. What I learned that was new was I listened to podcasts and read news articles, but seeing the people visually, there's something about the visual medium that helps you understand things, at least for me, that hearing about it or reading about it didn't give me, especially when there's a lot of different people being talked about, and there's a lot of people that are connected to this different. Right. You know, this guy might have been this guy and might have got this guy, might have recruited that guy, and this guy got it, and maybe handed it off to that guy. Having it all there visually on screen really helped with keeping track of the different figures involved. But I'll tell you, the one thing I walk away from this is just, I feel sick to my stomach watching it because that artwork is still gone. And even if they recover it tomorrow, it's been abused and mishandled. I mean, the Storm in the Sea was literally cut out of the frame. I mean, it's probably been rolled up in a tube, stuck in this, acidic tube, paper tube made out of acidic paper, just not museum quality storage for decades now. It just is, it's potentially ruined. And it just makes me sick to my stomach to think of this priceless heritage of art being lost because some jerks thought they were going to make an easy score. And that really gets me. But a couple of interesting things. One of them was, I can't even run into you, because at one point, this artwork might have been within a couple miles of our house. They were like talking, well, at one point this guy was saying he's got artwork here in this place in the town of Randolph, and they show like on a map, and I'm like, I can literally see our street. That's where our house is, right there. That was kind of wild. And apparently the Boston mob, was heavily involved. This is the working theory, is that the Boston Mafia was heavily involved in this. They were under siege by the FBI big time at this time. And there was this idea going around that if you can give the FBI missing artwork, if you can promise to give them missing artwork, it's like a get out of jail free card. Like, you've arrested me, but if I give you this Rembrandt, will you cut my sentence? Because it had worked for some guys before, and so now suddenly it was open season on artwork, which, duh, this is why we don't do that. So they think it might have been the mob. And as I said,
like the mob that stole it, or just that they somehow
the mobster stole it. They think that the mobsters were behind the theft. And they think they know the guys. And almost all of these guys, except for one, are dead now. They died either violently or prematurely of natural or of natural causes. But there's one guy, and he just got out of jail. He was in prison for 40 years for a armored car robbery, and his sentence got reduced by about 20 years within the last year, like in 2019. And nobody seems to know why. And he might have been one of the two robbers. But if they know, like, if he gave them something about it, where's the art? Like, and the FBI is always running around saying, well, we know who did it. We really know who did it. We're not going to say who because that would jeopardize our case, but we know who did it. We know how they did it, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, but where's the art? Like, if you know who did it, then why don't you have the artwork? And we don't believe you until you have the artwork. So it's an interesting and ultimately, in some ways, unsatisfying.
Because there's no resolution.
Because there's no resolution, which is real. I mean, that's real life. I still recommend it, though. It's a good, interesting documentary. You learn a lot about Isabella. You learn a lot about the museum and the artwork, and about the mob in Boston, and a bit about the history of the mob in Boston. I mean, it was like the Wild West in the 70s and 80s. I remember when Cadillac Frank Salemi was shot in the IHOP parking lot in Saugus when I was a newspaper boy. I remember like delivering that paper, like, wow, that's like something out of the movies. It was kind of wild, but there was, yes, shootouts in parking lots and stuff back then. It's much better than it used to be, thanks to the FBI and law enforcement. So it was called This Is A Robbery from on Netflix. So, did you have something you watched?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't tell me beforehand, so
you didn't ask me.
Well, what did you watch?
I watched Avengers Endgame.
Oh, right. That little movie.
Yeah. So I'm finally like through that whole story arc.
That's basically the end of the MCU, except for the stuff on the Disney Plus.
Right. Which is next up.
Right. WandaVision and then Falcon. So
many people have been talking about WandaVision. Now I'm going to make some time to sit down and watch it. But first I have a lot of reading to catch.
When you do, I want to rewatch it with you.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's worth rewatching.
So yeah, I had known how Infinity War ended. I had a lot less idea of how Endgame was going to play out. I found that much more satisfying as a storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to go back and watch the entire series over again now that I've seen the end to put more of the pieces together.
Did you watch everything? What did you miss? Did you watch both Ant-Man movies?
I didn't watch the second Ant-Man.
So this is why you needed to watch the second Ant-Man, because you've missed something.
What? I get a sense of what happened.
I know. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I think that it definitely had a lot of characters, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of big flashy stuff, and not enough plot development.
You had a lot of characters that they had to serve with the story.
At the same time, I felt that there were some very satisfying story arcs. I thought that Tony Stark, Iron Man's
daughter.
Yeah. His story arc was really good. It came to a very satisfying conclusion with Endgame, and I really I liked that. I'm glad I watched all 3 Iron Man movies before, like, out of order, but sure.
Right.
but I'm glad I watched them because his story arc was very solid. I really liked Captain America's story arc as well. That was good, and I really liked the Gamora and
Peter Quinn.
Her
Thanos.
No, her sister.
Oh, Nebula.
Nebula. I do not know why I
Amy
always like whenever I try to think of Nebula's name, I have this like brain lock.
That name is so nebulous.
It really, I do not know why. It just, I really cannot remember her name. I really liked that. It was a really nice sister story.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody who has a sister myself, like I really connected with that particular story.
Are you Gamora or Nebula? Is Tree more of a robot? In some ways, like if you think about it, Nebula is kind of autistic in that sense. Having trouble with emotions and connecting with people on that personal level and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I only connect with them their story to a certain extent, but
I know, yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot going on. I thought that there were some really emotionally satisfying moments, though. That
the Captain America resolution,
that was good.
Yeah,
and even the sort of the big battle scene. I think that I kept asking myself, like, what do they get? What does the story get by having like Infinity War end where it does, and then have everybody come back?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is a really satisfying emotional punch there. I feel like there's still an open question that didn't really get resolved to my satisfaction, which is, why did Doctor Strange give the stone away?
Because it was the one timeline where they won. It was the unexpected maneuver, but by giving it away, that was set in motion a series of events that would bring about the resolution. But
I felt like it didn't explain what that series of events was.
Well, the series of events was what you ended up seeing.
No, I know, but what was it about that particular series of events? I felt like
by having the snap happen, they could bring it back. There was no way they could stop him from doing the snap. So he had to give him the stone in order for the snap to happen in a particular way, and then have Ant-Man be where he is, and all of these things unroll in a particular fashion to have it be able to get to the point where they can have the resolution they wanted.
Yeah, I still feel like
it's a comic book resolution.
Right?
But
it's the
there's
genre. An emotional. I feel like I missed like an emotional beat that like. And it might just be I wasn't watching carefully enough. Like, again, like I want to go back and rewatch it because I feel like there was something there that I want to pay more attention to, or I want to like. I can't say it's an open. There's an open question I have.
Okay.
There.
All right. Yeah, without spoiling, I guess, is you're trying to avoid spoilers. But yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it is not every bow tied and every string, every loose end tied up
no.
For the end. And I think it's intentional because they are planning more stories. There's more to come. And I think we might see some of that discussed in, say, the next Doctor Strange movie.
Right. I mean, right. And there's room for more stories. And I think that I do actually prefer stories where everything isn't neatly tied up in a bow. So things that feel too pat, I don't tend to like. It feels too overly engineered.
Right.
Inauthentic. This had a lot of those human moments where it didn't quite explain everything, but it did it in a way that I really liked. But there's just something like that's nagging at me, and it's subconscious. Like I can't put my finger on it. That there's something there that I haven't quite thought through or noticed or something.
Maybe with some time. Cool. Well, I'm glad phase 1 is now complete. On to phase 2. In both senses. So I just wanted to quickly talk about today's mass readings. So just as a recap, this was the 5th Sunday of Easter. The first reading was from the Acts of the Apostles, where Saul arrives in Jerusalem because he's been called by Christ to become a Christian, and all the disciples are afraid of him. I love that Saul arrived in Jerusalem tried to join the disciples, but they were all afraid of him. And that is such a visual moment. Like, hi guys, and they're like, you're the one who's been killing all of us. Well, we don't believe you. And it's Barnabas who has to step forward and go, no. I'll take responsibility for him.
I'll vouch for him.
Well, he took charge of him. Like he's like, okay, and brings him in, and he brings him to the apostles, and Saul, now Paul, explains to them what happened, and then he's got this newbie sort of fervor that he's like, he spoke and debated with the Hellenists, but they tried to kill him. It's like, wow, what if, like, this is all in this one little like set of verses here. This, and so they said, the disciples, the apostles, when they learned of this, they took him to Caesarea, get him out of town where he's going to be safer. He's a danger to himself. Right.
That sort of, yeah, there's so much satisfying in that story. That, yeah, if Paul feels very real when you read the Acts of the Apostles.
Gosh, I mean, who like when you've seen very capable converts, there's converts like a Scott Hahn, who he was already a Christian, but when you encounter the converts who are very capable and they're out there and it's like, yes, and you're like, whoa, this guy's got something going on. This guy's really excited and a little, and you almost want to say, okay, dial it down a little, dial it down. Take your time. There's plenty of time to bring it out there. But Paul is literally a man with a mission. And the gospel, trying to get the word out, the gospel for this week is John 15.
I am the vine.
I am the vine.
I really like this one.
And my Father is the vine grower. And it's very interesting, the imagery. My Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch that doesn't bear fruit. But even the ones that bear fruit are pruned. Like nothing is untouched by the Father.
Right. So in the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, the parable of the vine and the branches it's paired with first penance, with reconciliation.
Okay.
It's a very concrete image, especially for children to connect with. What happens when we go to confession? Sin cuts us off from Jesus the vine, and confession grafts us back onto the vine.
Yes.
And I love the concrete, like you explain to kids that you can actually do this with vines. Like you can cut a branch off of one vine and then graft it onto another plant.
Yes.
And it's really one of those cool things about viniculture. And I love the way the gospel uses that.
And the interesting thing about grafting is you have to not only cut the branch and thus wound it in a way, but the vine also has to be cut in order to make the graft connect. The wounds are brought together. So our woundedness is united with the woundedness.
Right. You have to match up the
Christ.
cuts.
Yes. Our woundedness is united to Christ's woundedness. And through that, we become whole and we become grafted onto him. I mean, yes, the whole vine and branch imagery is fantastic. I really like that. And also the point, and I think Father Mike made this point in his homily today, if we're fruitful, we will be pruned to bear more fruit. Sufferings and struggles in our lives could be that kind of pruning where things that are unnecessary for the vocation God has for us is stripped away through struggle and suffering.
But Father Mike also, I think, did something interesting where he actually kind of talked about, because I was thinking about the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd and the vine and confession, but Father Mike kind of talked about pruning in terms of also pruning away our sins. Like Christ, when he prunes us, is cutting out all the stuff that, when you prune a plant, sometimes what you cut off is the diseased stuff.
Yes.
It's got mold or fungus or something growing on it.
Or it's been eaten by
an
insect or, yeah.
So there's that too, but again, like you say, it's about
sometimes healthy bits are cut off of a vine.
Right. When you're pruning your bushes, you sometimes cut off branches that look healthy.
Or even like in wine growing, in when you're growing wine grapes, they pinch off some of the healthy bunches of grapes because they want all of the energy of the vine going into just the few of the grapes to really concentrate all of the flavor and all of the goodness that is going. They don't want it watered down through a bunch of grapes. They want it to be concentrated into a small.
So the sugars get more concentrated.
Right. And then they also they don't want them to get too wet. They don't want overwater them. They want them to be almost. Sometimes some grapes for wine look like raisins on the vine. They look like they're dying, but it's just really super concentrated. If you put too much water, it's all watered down. And it's like that with what God is doing with us. He's concentrating his grace in us, and he's cutting away even good things sometimes in our lives, and concentrating us into to perfect us for holiness, not just to make us good, apostles out, to proclaim the gospel, but also just for good for us, to cut away things that, even though they might be good, the loss of those things makes us stronger and makes us more concentrated Christian. I don't know a good vintage of Christian, shall we say?
Right.
There's another point, which is that we are rooted in Jesus. How do we get rooted in Jesus? If the second reading tells us, if we believe in him, we keep his commandments, and we love one another. Boom. That's how we stay rooted in Jesus. If we want to remain in him, then that's how we do it. Believe in him, keep his commandments, love one another. So that was really good. I did want to mention Father Mike's his beginning of his homily.
Yeah, he said, "Do you ever wake up and you feel so good, you're so happy, you just wake up and you just want to sing?" So he said, that's how I feel today. I woke up and I want to sing, and so he just broke into song. Burst into song right there.
I want to remind people he's Nigerian, so he's got that Nigerian fervor and the Nigerian way of speaking. Yeah, and he sang El Shaddai, and he just like several verses of it, just singing. Didn't really have anything to do with the homily. It wasn't connected to the homily. He just wanted to sing.
No, it's just like, life is good. It's beautiful. I'm feeling joyful today. I'm going to express my joy through song. And I really loved it. It made my day.
It's very personal, sometimes the priests can do things like this and it feels like they're grandstanding, like they're entertaining, they're looking for attention. But with Father Mike, it feels very authentic. This is just who he is. But it's also rooted. It's not just who he is and this is his egocentric personality. No, there's a humility in it in a way.
Yeah.
He's just being real. Yeah. It's nice. It's great to have him as pastor. That's for sure. Awesome. So I think that should do it for now. Let's take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including Alex G, Angie T, John H, Mark S, and Thomas D. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Raising the Bets and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What'd you think of our discussion? If you have any feedback for us, you can do so by commenting at sqpn.com/bets, that's BETTS, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to bets@sqpn.com. And of course, links from everything in our discussion will be in our show notes at sqpn.com. Remember to like Raising the Bets on the StarQuest Facebook page and retweet us on Twitter at SQPN and leave us comments. Until next time, I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest.